Welcome, everybody. My name's Herbert, and this is Tesla Today. So, with the Tesla stock showing some momentum in the last 2 weeks, I thought it might be a good idea for us to let's talk about all the different kinds of events that can happen in the next year or so that can continue this momentum going, that can change the narrative a bit. And so, I've invited Randy Kirk to join me today, and he has done his own video on his own YouTube channel called Randy Kirk, and he went through these 11 events. And so I'd like to ask him about and see what we're doing. So thank you so much, Randy. Appreciate you joining me.
Always fun. Really like it.
Let's get going. There's a lot to cover here today. So let's just review quickly here the 11, what you're calling narrative changers, things that can continue the momentum, that can build your confidence in Tesla. These are things you said that might happen in this particular year. So you've got here a massive PR push by Elon, advertising, 500,000 cars per quarter and hitting 2 million cars per 2023. The Cybertruck handoff, if there's more Optimus videos and the AI Day 3 coming up in September, if they just continue showing growing average sales price and auto gross margins, you think that maybe there's going to be new, just continued news about growing energy, Tesla batteries, and semis. If at some point there's an FSD moment, the Gen 3 car reveal, which you said, we all agree won't happen this year, but maybe the first quarter of next year. And if Dojo is service or somehow Tesla is starting to be seen as an AI company, all of these things, if they happen or some pieces of it happen, they're definitely big events for Tesla to continue moving forward. So did you want to make a comment when you came up with these 11 ideas?
Yeah. So over the last, as you mentioned, over the last 2 or 3 weeks, we began to see Tesla diverge on the stock market. The stock has diverged from both the NASDAQ as well as even from what I call the risky growth stocks, the Cathie Wood type stocks.
Mm-hmm.
For the last year, I would say at least, Tesla has been moving almost exactly with those risky growth stocks. And I think that's because the overall investing public was seeing Tesla as still being risky. Definitely a growth stock. I don't think anybody's ever said it wasn't going to continue to grow. Maybe not at the 50% per year, but
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely growing, growing, growing. But I think they were starting to see some risk. And those risks, we all know what they were. They were the Elon Musk Twitter thing, with Elon Musk being too political. We saw reducing margins, and or we saw potential lack of demand. So all of these things, all of these risk factors were causing the stock to be seen as risky, but at the same time growth. And so I think that was the narrative. The narrative broke. The narrative of a year ago
Mm-hmm.
broke, that it was just go, 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 go. That broke, and it got into this pile of other risky growth stocks. But the last 3 weeks, not only has Tesla been better than the Nasdaq, but it's also even as the market has been a little more risk on, and the risky growth stocks have done better. Tesla's done better than them as well. So to me, when I started analyzing and taking a hard look, I saw two things. Number one, all the risk was gone. Every single element
Mm-hmm.
of the risk narrative was gone. The Twitter deal looked like it was no longer an overhang, the famous Gary Black Twitter
Yeah.
overhang, that was
Yeah.
gone. Elon wasn't necessarily as active out there in the Twitter sphere, and it was kind of now built in. The narrative about not having enough demand started to go away as Tesla started raising prices. And also, I think there became a sense in the market that maybe it was true that as the year progressed, those margins would grow back into at least the 20s, if not maybe into the mid 20s. So all of those narratives started going away simultaneously with good news after good news. I have a show on Friday I call Good News Friday, and I haven't had any trouble filling that show because
Yeah. Yeah.
there's just been just so much good news coming out of Tesla the last 3 weeks. So that suggested to me a narrative shift. I've said for months that that's what Tesla needed, was a narrative shift. And once the narrative shift happens, then the stock will start climbing towards what I see as 300 by the end of the third quarter and going towards 400 in the first quarter of next year. And that needed a narrative shift and also a market. The overall market needed to also become more risk on. That I don't think has happened yet, a tiny bit. And I think that's because of the AI deal. So there's a number of headlines over the last week talking about how AI has really energized tech, and that combination of energy from AI and from tech might be starting to give us a little more of a risk on atmosphere in the overall, at least the NASDAQ side of
Mhm.
things. So that's the
Okay.
underlying motivation for my list.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I love what you just said there. Now, just to be clear to folks, this is barring macro. We're not going to talk about that today. There's been other
Right.
shows we've discussed at length of what we think is going to happen with the macro environment. But even with the macro environment being what it is today, what you just said, everybody's seeing now, companies that are associated with AI, they're now starting to see their growth going outside, especially the NVIDIA, for example. And the three that I see here is FSD Moment, Dojo is a service and as a one example of AI that the company has. But let's talk about this, which is a massive PR push by Elon. And so, recently Elon started talking about the company being AI. He was on CNBC. He talked about that. He's starting to bring it up often that, the Tesla is the largest company with the best technology, real world AI. And the fact that he said at the last interview where he said, I am here at Tesla and I'm going to be working here because I want to make sure that there's efforts here I want to push it through that Tesla becomes an AI and AGI company that can help participate in that. So, is that what you mean by the massive PR push by Elon?
Yeah, exactly. So we know that Elon does really well on television. We know that he does really well, even though he's awkward as heck. He just has a special charm about him, a certain transparency that everybody can see. I mean, here he is, maybe the most important guy on the planet right now, the second richest guy on the planet right now, and yet he goes on stage and he just feels like the guy that you'd hang out with next door, and he's just got that special. That's a special kind of charm that he has. So he does really well in that environment, and he's very thoughtful in the way that he responds on television, unlike Twitter sometimes. And so it's just really, really good. And when he goes on there and he starts talking about something like that Tesla is, know, you so far ahead on AGI that the second place team, you need to take a telescope to see them. That seems like hyperbole, but it starts to infect the brain. And if you care enough, then you can do the research and you can start to see, well, what is the hardest thing that maybe the human race has ever tried to do? And that's vision based FSD is probably the hardest thing that humanity has ever tried to achieve. So, in order to do that, you would have to have, if you're going to achieve it, you would have to have world beating AI capabilities. Um, you'd have to have the two things. You have to have massive data and you have to have massive compute. That doesn't count even the software brains that go along with all of that, but they have the biggest computer for AI, and they also have the most data for the subject matter that they need to deal with, and they have the biggest brains. Maybe they don't have the biggest brain, but they have the combination of all these amazing engineers working on this subject matter, including Elon, who maybe is the biggest brain. So
Yeah.
anyway, so getting out there and talking about it the way that Elon can do, um, I think he will continue to be extremely visible over the next months, and that will be one prop. That'll be one thing that's buoying the stock or the idea of the stock. The narrative will be him out there a lot talking about how great Tesla is in multi dimensions. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I think that this could be something very easy for Elon to do, and he has been making the rounds with the being doing interviews. But if he just starts talking a lot more about AI, this could very easily, very quickly start to change people's just perception of Tesla. Right? It can happen very quick, and that's what got me excited when he said, "I'm staying at Tesla, and
Yeah.
this is my focus." That's
Right.
fantastic. Okay, let's go to the next one, which is advertising. Tell us what you're thinking there, and clearly, if they start doing this, that's going to make a difference. But what were you saying?
So the first thing is just saying it. So, so there was a whole bunch of folks, investors, I don't care, retail or professional investors, who are sitting there thinking that Tesla should advertise, even if it's only
Mhm,
50% or 30%, or maybe it's 75% that think he should advertise, that Tesla needs the advertising now. And again, I want to make sure everybody understands, at least from my perspective, it isn't a lack of demand. The
mhm,
issue is the tremendous number of new vehicles that need to be sold into a demand um, challenged environment. So there's not very many cars. There are hardly any car models that sell 600,000 vehicles a year. And yet we need to add 600,000 Model Ys to the already base of
mhm.
Model Ys that are being sold. So that's, again, it's a huge leap. It's hard for people to imagine how are they going to sell 600,000 more Model Ys in a difficult environment. So that's what Gary Black, I think, has been trying to say is, we need this additional, we need the advertising in order to make that happen. Just by saying it, you put that prop under the stock.
Mhm.
Just by saying it, you release tension, and people are going, "Oh, they're going to advertise." Well, man, that's just what they need to do. So, uh, whatever the ads turned out to be, it's almost more important that they just said, "Okay, we'll do that." So that's my theory with regard to advertising. Yes,
Yeah,
I could spend an hour, since
I know.
that's what I've been doing my whole career, on what they should do in terms of
Right.
advertising. But I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of the buoying up of the narrative.
Yeah, agreed. This is easy. Whether or not they just do education, that alone is enough. Talking about EVs and all the benefits, but getting the Tesla kind of just everybody understanding about it because the vast majority of people still don't know how incredible the car is. But even just the fact that if they advertise, it could possibly reduce the negative misinformation, disinformation that the mainstream media does because they're now one of the advertisers. Even if that's just that alone, that's it's kind of a huge benefit. So, and it gives us the Tesla kind of bulls and the people supporting this company the ammunition. We could take that information that they do and spread it out even further. So that's great. Okay.
You
So
know
the next one.
what more
Mm,
one more thought. One more thought. I hadn't thought of this before until now. Is that this advertising
mm.
is also advertising to investors?
Yes. Yes.
So
Exactly.
every
Yeah.
ad, they are going to be seeing that ad as well. Yep.
Absolutely. It's going to be a momentum and a narrative changer. Okay, the next one is if they can start, and they might even do it this quarter. It might be the second quarter, 500,000 cars per quarter, and then of course the 2 million number by 2023, because that is within the 50% growth that they were targeting. So, what's your thoughts here?
Okay, so I started talking about this about 3 months ago because of the negative narratives that were going on. All of a sudden, there was a extreme need to hit the numbers, to every quarter hit the numbers. You needed, in order to keep the momentum going, in order to keep the new narrative fresh, you needed to really hit them. So right now we're looking at a very, I would think, easy number to hit for the second quarter. I think they're predicting 437 or 440 or something around that number. And I'm thinking it's going to be 490. Maybe I'm way off and maybe they're way off,
Yeah.
but I think they're going to get an easy beat. So by executing consistently the rest of the year, that will not that will help again to buoy the narrative. And I think 500,000 a quarter is a really, really good, easy to think about number. And it's also easy to multiply by four to get to 2 million a year. So if you hit 500,000 either this quarter or next quarter, all of a sudden 2 million is in the bag, so to
Yeah.
speak, because the fourth quarter is always stronger. And two plus becomes something that people will start to talk about. If we're talking about two plus, then that's a lot more profit, and and also again keeps the narrative going, keeps the
What
buoyancy going.
What do you think is more important? We talked about earlier that Tesla as a stock is a growth company. It's a beta stock. So people expect it to grow, and that's why they give it the high margins, the high market cap,
Multiple.
right? And the multiple. But then everybody's going, well, look what happened to earnings. And so now the earnings are lower. And so the P is going to be lower. But which is more important, the growth or the earnings? So if they can still show a 2 million car selling rate, meaning there's no demand issues, but they had to reduce the price to get there, is that more important than keeping a high margin, even the lower volume? What is your opinion on that?
So I think in a rough year, the margin, the number story is more important.
Mhm.
I think in 2024, if the overall market changes, in fact, I've mentioned, I think on your show once before, that there's a lot of talk that the current inventory of cars in the United States is the oldest it's ever been.
Yeah.
So there should be a big spring being coiled up of demand for cars. And now you have only 22% of the people saying that they wouldn't buy an electric car. You have
Mhm.
78% of Americans saying they would
Mhm.
consider an electric car. So if you've got a coiled spring and you've got an economy that comes back and you have people that are willing to look at electric cars, that is like a foundation under Tesla like you couldn't even ask for. It's a Cinderella story.
Yeah. I agree with that, and I think that the you said that in a situation where we're in right now, volume is important, but also because the two factories are just still ramping up, and so I think for me, it's volume matters more than margins for now, and then later you're going to get the margins to come anyways. But
Yes.
okay, good. I love it. I agree with you. I think that the if the volume continues to come in, that's going to be a good narrative change and just back to a growth company. We're back to a growth company and everybody will be all excited again and they'll move forward. And then this one, I think most of us all agree the Cybertruck handoff is going to be a big deal. Tell me why you think so.
Okay, so the negative narrative on the Cybertruck has been, oh, they're never going to build it. They're going to talk about it
Mhm.
and talk about it, but it's never going to get built.
Yeah.
So every time that Elon comes out and says we're on track, that is buoying the stock. Every time that there's some piece of news out there that talks about the next version of it that everybody's seeing on the streets or in the parking lot or whatever, these are all helping people to become believers that the product is actually almost ready for launch. When there's an actual handoff, obviously, then that puts everything to rest. I look at the handoff as being about a 4 to 6 week proposition. So there's the handoff itself, some kind of a show that they're going to do with that handoff, gets a lot of people energized and excited. We get to see what the final version is. We get to see what the specs are. We get to see what the pricing is. We get to see what the models are that they're going to start with, et cetera, et cetera. But then you're going to have about a 4 to 6 week period where reporters are going to be dying to get their hands on one of these. It's not going to be
Mhm.
like, it's not even going to be like the Model 3 or the Model Y. It is going to be every reporter who does cars or trucks is going to be the number one thing they want to do is get behind the
Mhm.
wheel of one. They'll do whatever it takes to get behind the wheel and be first to report or second to report. So then that's going to be really critical in terms of keeping the narrative hot. If the reporting, if the initial reports, the initial third party reporting is good or even great or amazed, who knows what happens with stock? Because I think it was Brian Wong that has been talking about all the use cases. Yeah, it is Brian. He's been talking about all the use cases that people are not paying any attention to, the class 4, the class 2, all these hyper tough cars, I mean, trucks rather, that most people aren't thinking about that. They're thinking about, for a construction site or for driving around Beverly Hills to show to show that you're cool. But the class 4 thing, the truck is going to be capable of doing that class 4 work. So anyway, it's an opportunity that could be so explosive, it could be shocking, and I see it as like I said, a 6 week deal.
A lot of people are saying the same thing you are, but I guess my question is, it comes out, it's going to be incredible. People are going to love it, and you're saying, I love what you said, which is third party reviews has to come out good. But let's say it is. Let's say it's fantastic, and just the fact that it's out there is enough. I think that could make people think of Tesla, realize that they're a tech company. That's what I'm saying. If they're has full of tech, it can change that narrative of They're not just a car company. Oh my God, they're a tech company. But the question is, what happens though, that the fact that he's already saying, downplaying that this is going to be a low margin impact to the margin because it's going to be low volume for this year for sure. It's going to be a slow ramp up and then it'll rise quickly. So even 2024, it could be very slow still. It's not going to contribute meaningfully to the auto gross margins or the sales, but it's going to be amazing in terms of like, the impact. But so do you think that the stock will still possibly rise when it comes out, even though people realize this is not going to contribute to the margins until a year and a half later?
Okay, so Elon's final statement when he was talking those low numbers was, "Well, if they want them, we'll build them." So
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
this is a as a businessman, this is what I would expect to hear from Elon. He's saying maybe he's underplaying it. Maybe he's you know wants to wants to give people the impression that it's a you know I don't know what his philosophy or his psychology was there. All I can tell you is if you can sell a million Rams or a million uh, F-150s or then you can sell a million of these. I don't see any reason why there wouldn't be at least a market for a million of them, and potentially a lot more. There's been a couple of people starting to report, why wouldn't this be a truck that would sell in Europe and in China, et cetera, et cetera? Yes, it's big. Yeah, streets are small, whatever. If it does work, and I'm not even talking about the part that's, the Hummer side of things, you know, I'm
Yeah.
talking about if it does work better, more efficiently, more effectively, makes the business owner more money because of low cost and higher performance, then why wouldn't it sell everywhere in the world? And if you really need a smaller
Yeah.
version, maybe they'll make a smaller version.
They already talked about it earlier. In fact, I think it's going to sell way more than just the F-150 is because it's not a truck, right? There's people like me that, and you, we talked about this already, that we never would have bought a truck, but here we are with reservations. There's many people like that. But I think when he said that, he's almost like comparing it to the rest of the Tesla sales. When the compact car comes out, when the Model Y is selling the way it is, and in fact, other things that are building is going to sell way more than just this, even though this is going to be a massive seller, it's going to be there. So okay, yeah, and I think it will be a good momentum for the stock because it'll change the narrative, the technology, and that people can carry it forward. That several years from now, this is going to be a big deal. But I think that they'll forego the fact that it's going to be small numbers this year.
Oh, yeah, and again, it may not be that small in 2024.
Or
The ramp could go normally, or it could go better than normal. I don't.
he's
Elon doesn't even know at this point how fast
he's
the ramp
hedging.
will go.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
yeah,
he's hedging
yeah,
only because this is a brand new
right,
technology to build
right,
this truck. They've never done it before. So,
right.
okay, the next one you have is Optimus videos and AI day 3. So we saw that Optimus video that came out in the shareholder meeting, and just that alone, everybody was freaking out because we saw the incredible improvement of what the bot can do now. Even just that one video alone, I personally, and I've been talking about it quite a bit, and did a lot of videos on this, it alone is already changing the narrative of Tesla. People are starting to talk about it. They're now realizing it's not something that is 5, 10 years away from now. And you're saying that if there's more of these videos keep coming out and just continue to show the improvement, AI day 3 is going to be September. So you're thinking by September, or are you thinking just continuously?
Continuously, again, looking at it as this buoyancy, this narrative feeder. You need to keep feeding the narrative. The narrative, when you have a story stock and you
Yeah.
want it to have multiples, you need to keep feeding the narrative. Okay. And so if Elon says he's going to do a half an hour video
Yeah.
after after the um, earnings call
Yeah.
in July, oh my gosh! I mean, I already wait for those earnings call with bated breath. I mean, like, come on, when's the earnings call? But a half an hour video on Optimus, I mean, that's just crazy. So
Yeah.
yeah, the more that they put something out, I don't care what it is, once a month, would be nice to see something new about Optimus. Um, Somebody said the other day, they said something really, really smart. Most people, their first idea of Optimus is, what is it going to do for me in my kitchen? What's it going to do for me in my house? I got to tell you something. If you start thinking about what you need that Optimus for around your house, it ain't much. We're we as humans today, we are totally spoiled by the lack of the work that we need to do in the household. It's really small.
Mhm.
I've always said, maybe I've said it on your show, I just wanted to give me massages because you can direct it as to where you want the massage.
Okay, ready.
But where this, but, but where this machine, where this
Yeah.
Optimus comes in, is in the workplace.
Yes. Yeah.
And most people don't think that way. I saw a headline on this the other day. I'm a manufacturer for 30 years. I'm wholesaler and importer, exporter for the other part of my career, the entire
Mhm.
career, basically for 50 years, distribution and import export. As soon as I saw it, it was like, I know where I can use it. Okay.
Yeah.
But the average investor out there, the average retailer investor, and certainly the professional investor, they're not working in factories. They're not thinking about how to use it in a distribution center. They're not thinking about how to use it on a construction site. That's where the use case is. And so when that starts to become more and more obvious, and people say, oh my gosh, it's going to replace millions, potentially millions and millions and millions of people in factories and construction sites, et cetera, and that the TAM is 9 billion, and that's not wrong, that's
Bigger than
reasonable
that.
to contemplate, um, then I think that the stock at some point, well, it'll continue. It's, as long as there's not a physical product to sell, it's only going to be buoyancy. There will start to be what you want to call it, some FOMO going on. You don't want to miss this one.
Yeah.
Okay, at some point,
Yeah.
retail investors and professionals are going to go. Institutionals, they're going to start going, I don't want to miss this one. This is really, really big. And at that point, I think you'll start to see some serious momentum. But then if it goes for sale,
Mhm. Yeah.
I think it'll be offered for sale at the AI Day 3. I know you had my
That's too
great
soon.
friend.
Yeah,
I
they're
know you
not gonna sell this, Randy. They're not gonna sell this. They're not gonna
oh,
offer
okay,
it for sale.
for lease. It's fine. It's fine. For
They
lease. I'm just
Tesla
saying,
themselves are going to
yes.
use every bot that they create for the next 2 years. They're gonna send it to their supply chain. So, a couple of points. Um, first of all, totally agree with everything you're saying. So, number 1,
Yes.
you and I are considered to be all bulls because we keep
Yeah.
talking about the bots, and there's, like, a huge group of people saying, "Oh my god, you guys, the bot is, like, years from now." But even if they don't sell this years from now, what you're saying is true, which is every month we're now at the point where they can keep doing these videos. And now we saw 5 Tesla bots walking in unison. Easily they can do 10 next video, 20 the next, and just show that we're building these things. And then every time show just yet another thing that it can do. They show that it's pouring the watering can, but they can easily just show, I don't know, shooting a basketball, whatever. Just things like that. It captures the imagination. It makes people realize this thing's developing, even if they don't sell it. Okay, it doesn't have to be sold. Like you said, buoyancy to the stock, changing the narrative of the company. So that's one. I think that they can do videos every month now, which is something that they haven't been able to do before because the thing couldn't even walk. Now it's walking. Now it's got the dexterity. And then the last video we saw, remember that guy, the engineer going like this? Oh my
Yeah.
god!
Yeah.
Because that was
Yeah.
a moment in time when what they showed the bot to do, it figured out on its own. Now it just left to its own devices, saw what was it, a potato or lemon there, and it
Right.
grabbed it on its own and knew how to do that. So that was the a moment that was important. And so more and more of these experiments and demos are going to happen. And then, so I do think as people start seeing this more and more and more, they will change their opinion of how far away this thing is. And
But
as
I'm
this
going to go on
happens,
record. But I have to go on record once
yep,
again.
yep,
They are going to lease. They're going to lease. I agree with the lease thing. They're probably not going to sell it. They're going to lease it.
hmm
Makes total sense to lease it. But they will be leasing it outside their four walls. They will be leasing it to the general public. And I say that they'll start taking applications for that at AI Day 3.
no, okay, no, Randy,
I know
zero,
you don't
no,
think so. I know, I'm
Randy.
telling you.
I've done I've done so many videos on this, okay? The message we're telling people is stop thinking that you're going to buy a consumer is going to buy this and work from their home. That is years
No, not
away.
consumers. I'm talking about
Fine.
manufacturers.
But I'm telling you that if Tesla only, just Tesla, who has
Yeah,
130,000 employees, start
yeah,
using this. I did not know this, but Scott Walter just said it in my last interview. He said that Tom Jew said that when we build the Giga Mexico, the Giga Nuevo Leon, it's going to have 10,000 employees, of which 5,000 will be the bots. And I
yeah,
said, what? He said that? So they're already thinking about bots working in their own factories. And so everything you build now, if you use it in your own factories, your your auto gross margin, your operating margin is going to skyrocket because you don't have to. It's each bot is worth 250, $300,000 of a human, replacing three humans,
savings.
one
Yeah,
human, all that. So the say, why would you don't need to sell it right now, and you won't need to sell it for a year. And then if you did sell, you'll sell to the vendors, the supply chain vendors that feed you so that you have double the benefits. You don't have just a sale, the lease of it, but you actually have the lower cost of the product that you're buying from your secondary vendors. It just makes it like, why would you need to sell to anybody else? You got your big enough market, just your own. So
yeah. So
yeah,
just to give you my feedback to that,
yeah,
I agree with the first two parts. You will make as many as you need to fill in your own factories as fast as you can. You will offer them and go out there and help your suppliers to use them in their factory situations, and that's a bunch of opportunities out there. But as a somebody who's been a manufacturer and a salesperson and a marketer my whole life, I can tell you that they're going to want to get this into a end user end user hands in order to be able to also start working in those markets. So maybe they only sell 100,000 to that market out of the first million. I don't know what it'll be, but
well,
they're going to want to get into that part of the business and start finding out what the issues are with selling those people or leasing those people and managing those in the third party locations. So that's
I,
just
what I what I might agree with you is similar to what they've done in previous products, like the Model 3 and the Cybertruck and the Semi, where they come out and say it's for sale, put in your deposit now, and then just the sheer number of people putting in, right? There's going to be 1 million orders, 5 million orders immediately, and then they'll say, it might not come for 3 to 5 years, but that's enough as a marketing thing to change a narrative. That may happen, but not that they're going to actually physically sell it for 2 to 3 years. Anyways, we could talk forever on this one, but I love the idea that, and I hadn't really thought about it, but these videos of these bots can now come fast and furious. Every month they can do something. And just
yeah.
that alone can add that buoyancy to the stock that you're talking about. Okay, let's keep going here. So we've got another one, which is growing average sales price and growing annual auto gross margin. So this is similar to a statement we made earlier, which is 500,000 cars per quarter, 2 million per year. But this is different in that it's the sales price and the gross margin.
Yeah. So what I'm looking at here is that I think that the combination of what they've already done and what they're going to do with the advertising and the massive, massive untapped market. I would like the audience to be thinking right now, see if they can guess what's the
Mhm.
biggest untapped market for Model Ys and Model 3s right now. It's a huge untapped market. It's the
Well,
other
I know
49
the
US.
answer. I
Yeah,
know
I
the
know you
answer.
do. It's the other 49 United States. It's just
Yes.
the other states, the other 49 states in the United States.
Yeah.
Only California is at 17% of the market, of the overall market. The rest of the states are like 1% and 3% and
Mhm.
5%. The rest of the United States is the second largest market for cars in the world. And for luxury cars and for high price cars, it's the largest market in the world. And yet it's only selling in basically it's only selling in California. Now there's a reason for that. The main reason, there's two big reasons. One is that the Midwest, the price of gas is so much less than California. I mean, it's
Mhm.
crazy. You just go one state over, and the price of gas goes down $2 a gallon. But but you're that's a huge it was a huge incentive for Californians to want the car because they would save so much on gasoline. Is an easy multiplication. But when you're only paying 235 for gas, it's not as easy to see it. The second thing is of course California, New York, et cetera, is where all new fashion, all new things, it all starts on the coast and then it goes to the Midwest later. So that would be the case now as well, I believe. There's a couple of other reasons, but we could talk about this another day. But I believe that that's where the big growth will come over the next 18 months. And as you start to see the take rate of Tesla vehicles in the Midwest, in the South, in the Northeast, on the it's going to be obvious that the potential to increase. And what you have to do, one of the other things I talk about that I think nobody really pays attention to, you can see the growth along that S curve that Tony Seba has been talking about. You can see the growth. You can see what's happened in China. You can see what's happened in the Netherlands. You can see what's happening in Europe, and you can see what's happened in California. So you have all these examples that you can now analogize from or extrapolate from to see what's going to happen in the rest of the world eventually. But the most obvious place for it to happen rapidly is now Europe and the United States Midwest. So, or the flyover states, all of the flyover states, not just the
Mhm.
Midwest. So yeah, I think that's what you're going to see over the next 18 months, and that will be
Yeah.
allowing that average sales price to go up because you're now going to have way more demand, and you're going to see the average gross margin going up, both because of the sales price going up and because of costs going down. So when
Yeah.
the costs go down, which we know is going to happen, that this is built in. I mean, it's like if you know anything about Tesla, and if you've been paying any attention at all, the raw material costs, the cost of manufacturing, the cost of the components because of mass higher scale, the cost of labor, and the cost of overhead as a percentage of the car cost, and also the cost of the investment dollars that went into uh, all of those things are going to be less.
Yeah.
So the overall cost of making the car is going to be lower every quarter from now on Model Ys, and your average selling price going up because demand will be there.
Yep.
It's going to be
I did
huge.
I did a show with Jeff Lutz, and we covered
Right
16
guy.
areas
Like
16 areas that Tesla has that they're going to increase gross margin, reduce costs. And what I think many of us are forgetting, we got hurt. We got hit badly on the first quarter. We were expecting 20% auto gross margin. We got 18%. But we're kind of like gun shy right now in the second quarter. But guess what? All of the cost savings that did not appear in the first quarter is going to start appearing now. The lower cost
yeah,
of lithium, the scale of the 2 gigafactories, just those two alone, as they scale up, just the volume scaling alone will reduce these gross margins. So all these things, the 16 areas, are continuing to improve the gross margin. So, like you said, we're likely at the point where we're at the lowest gross margin and it's going to keep going up. And as soon as they showed in the second quarter that the gross margin did not go below 18% and go back up to 20 or even a little bit higher, maybe the narrative changes. Immediately goes, okay, that happened because of price cuts, but now we're back into growing volumes, growing gross margins. I'm liking this conversation with you. Thank you so much. You're making me think of things I hadn't thought of. So, what we've covered so far is these six here on the left. We talked about the PR push. If Elon starts doing this, he'll change the narrative, the advertising, just hitting the numbers 500,000 quarters, 2 million cars per year, the growing ASP and margins, the CyberTruck event, the Optimus videos. Great. Let's talk about the next four here: growth in energy and battery and semi, FSD moment, Gen 3 car reveal, and Dojo as a service. So, energy, battery, semi. Let's not forget about those, eh?
exactly. Yeah. So again, I think the battery has been another one of the negative chinks in
Mm,
the armor
yep.
because people expected the battery production to hit sooner and faster. And so even though they keep telling us, no, we're right on target within our range of what we thought it would do in terms of the ramp, even though the ramp continues, there's still been this one last negative narrative, I guess you could say, that
Mm,
the batteries are not happening as fast as they should have. I'm going to assume that will
Mhm.
continue, that the ramp will continue, and then we'll start to hit some numbers that they'll be able to talk about that will be clean and clear and concise and transparent as to where we are on the battery ramp. And as that happens, again, buoyancy, buoyancy, buoyancy. The obvious big number, the one that's going to just kill it, is going to be when they hit 100 gigawatts. But even when they start hitting 60 or 70 or 80, if we get that reporting, clear reporting that they're hitting those numbers, that it's 60%, 70%, 80% done, I think you'll start to see, first of all, it'll buoy the stock no matter what. You'll get rid of the negative aspects of it, but then at 100, it's going to be crazy. And then when they start the second line in Reno, when they all they got to do is say the line is up and we're beginning the ramp in Reno.
Mhm.
That's another thing that'll just make it concrete that the battery is for sure, it's for real. And the numbers on the batteries, just in terms of the $35 a kilowatt hour that they get from the government,
Mhm.
are nutty.
Yeah.
So anyway, that would be one of those three. The second one, of course, is the semi truck. That's the one that grieves me the most. We've talked about it a lot on your show, but I don't think it's hurting the stock because nobody's paying any attention to it.
Yeah.
I don't think even the investor day and the second quarter earnings, it's like
Mhm.
nobody's talking about it. So I don't think it's hurting the stock, but I do believe that there's potential that if you start to see 100 a week, coming off a line, does that happen before the end of the year? I think it does because I've said it before. How do you get to 40,000? How could Elon have even offered the number 40,000 if we don't start making them in Reno until first quarter of next year? So I think they've got to be setting it up now. The line's got to be being set up now in whatever space they have available. Maybe the space where they had been doing the energy, the megapacks. So they've cleared out that space. It's completely done. That's done. Maybe they're putting up the line there, and maybe we'll start to see, 10 a week, and then 20 a week, and then 50 a week coming out of Reno, and then that becomes again buoyancy. It doesn't make the stock go crazy, but it will be buoyancy. And then I I don't want to keep you from interjecting. I'm sorry. I'm just talking and talking.
Oh, no, no. I was gonna say, you're right. These 3, people were disappointed with the 4680 ramp. They were disappointed with the semi. Um, and so those 2 could surprise. They can if there was a delay on those 2 things, then it's good news when it comes back and says, "Okay, we've settled it. We're on our path." And then with energy, people are forgetting, that they've already committed saying that Q3, Q4, they're going to start reporting on this. And so when they do report on Q3, Q4, that alone should change the narrative of who Tesla is and what the stock is valued at. And then people can start seeing the ramp up of that and they'll start forecasting it. And by then,
So
it's going to be pretty significant.
so here's something I don't think anybody's saying yet, and so I'm going to try to be first again.
Yeah.
I always like to be first. I always want to. I'm trying to connect the dots earlier than anybody else.
Mhm.
I'm seeing huge numbers of headlines right now on solar deployment, battery deployment, power pack deployment, virtual power plant deployment. There's headlines like every
Mhm.
day and lots of
There
them.
has been.
Because what I did the research about 3 or 4 months ago, the reason why solar was stuck, it was like not it was not growing nearly as fast as people thought it should grow, was because they needed batteries. And everybody I talked to, yep, that's what it was. Not enough batteries, then you can't put out more solar. You can't put, especially the utility size stuff. Well, now you've got enough batteries. So now the solar deployments are going like crazy. Wind was already doing well, and it's still doing well. There are lots of new deployments on wind, but the solar deployments now are going much stronger, and that means the battery deployments are going right behind them. China requires, I want to say 25%, I think it's 25% as much energy storage as there is solar deployment on every single solar farm that's put in. So that's a requirement. They got to have the batteries. So we've got this now. We've got a flywheel. Okay, the batteries were needed to deploy the solar. Now the solar is being deployed, needs more batteries. So you've
Mhm.
got the flywheel going. So now it's just a matter of being able to build them fast enough. And so with Tesla in the far out lead with 80 gigawatts under development and probably a lot more, even from
Yeah.
those two locations, but a lot more that's probably announceable soon. Again, it's hard because it's not sexy.
Yeah.
So it's probably just buoyancy again, but it's good buoyancy. It's the kind of buoyancy that people say, wow, this is interesting. They got this too. And so there might be a point, I can't quite imagine it, but there might be a point at which some number comes out on the balance sheet or something else that trips the wire and people
Exactly.
go, okay, now I get it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. All these stories about solar energy, these things are kind of sitting in the sidelines, but eventually it trips the wire. And then, yes, you guys are big in this space. Just going to happen. Just going to happen. I love it. All right, a few more. So we've got FSD moment. Yeah. You initially said that at level 4, level 5. I removed that. And I said, Randy, I called it the FSD moment.
Okay, good, good, good. Yes, the FSD moment. So I have this two theories of what that looks like. One of them is Elon says you can drive the car from the back seat, and the other one
Mm,
is Elon says when you're on FSD, the insurance is covered by Tesla. Those miles are covered by Tesla. I don't know if he's ever going to say that because that might be a real liability issue. Maybe the stock exchange, maybe the investing community wouldn't like the fact that they're on the hook, but they're going to be on the hook. So maybe you should just say it and be transparent. I don't know. So yeah, there's going to be an FSD moment. I think it has. I think at this point it has to be 100%.
no.
I
See,
don't know if there's.
I disagree with
Yeah.
you. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So those two things you just said, they do not need to happen for it to have an FSD moment. An FSD moment is simply this realization by the general public that it's inevitable that those moments, those situations will happen, that Tesla will
Mhm.
eventually claim liability for insurance. They will say that you can go ahead and sleep in the back of the car. They will get the regulatory approval. Those things do not have to happen till 3 years, 5 years from now. But for the stock to go up, it just needs to have that realization that, oh my gosh, robotaxi is inevitable and Tesla's ahead. And so that realization can happen at any time just by, this week, Tesla is releasing the latest version of 11.4 point whatever it is, point two.
Two.
It's going to come out now for general public release. Everybody's going to buy it. They're going to play with it. There's going to be more videos. And just that point when people stop saying it made stupid mistakes is enough for this realization for everybody realizing it's happening. And more people are watching the videos, more and more people are driving it and showing it to friends and family. And then it becomes something that takes off. Now, people are saying, well, this is not like ChatGPT. ChatGPT, 100 million people downloaded the app, went to the website, played with it directly themselves. This is not something. I don't believe that has to happen. I think just the videos alone, the videos alone is enough that more people, you think that you think videos are out there, oh, only us people on Twitter are watching these videos. If the general public sees this video, or they sit down in a car with somebody, which is now possible because they've opened it up, that anybody can just turn it on, pay $200, and automatically it's right there within
Right.
that hour
Right.
that they do this. That's enough. So anyways, that's my difference, and I think that's enough to again change the narrative of the company, of the stock,
Yeah.
and where its trajectory is.
Again, I think any progress buoys the stock. So any
Yeah.
progress buoys the stock, and the progress that we've seen recently, I think, got some pretty wide acknowledgement
Mm-hmm.
that the safety issues might be almost dealt with.
Hmm.
That would be a pretty good thing, and so I think that could buoy the stock. But in terms of the stock responding like um, like like Nvidia last week or something like that. That's going to take a moment. That's going to take the
Hmm.
moment I'm talking about.
Okay.
With it's now 100%.
Yeah. Well, if that happens, Randy, it's not just going to be a 25% bump like Nvidia did. When that happens, it's going to be a 10x. Uh, what I'm talking about is just enough to get this stock back up to $300.
Yeah.
which is a 15%, it's a 30% jump. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
it won't happen all at once. It's all these things happening together, but that's one
Yeah.
of them that could happen for sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
the next one we
So we're
have
not that
here,
far off.
yeah, is the Gen 3 car reveal. Orders are taken. You're thinking that this is gonna happen the first quarter of next year. Absolutely. What's your thinking here?
Yeah. So, well, I guess this one's maybe the most obvious of all. Um, it's going to require what's going to be required for this is going to be some real movement in Mexico. I mean, we really are kind of starting to get behind the curve here again. We were kind of thinking that the permits were going to be done at the end of March and that they were going to shovel dirt 1st of May, and now we're to the 1st of June, and we still don't have any dirt being shoveled, and we don't have any, we don't have a ribbon being cut. So this one is going to start to get a little bit of, let's say it could become a chink in the armor. But if we start to see the ribbon cutting, we start to see that the permits are in place, we start to see some pilings going into the ground, then we'll start, I think it'll start to buoy. And then I think they should do what they're doing with Optimus. I think that they need to keep giving us some teasers. There needs to be some teasers, something to show progress, something to show that they're with the cars themselves, not just with the factory, but something that gives us some information. And Elon is brilliant at this. He's done it the whole time. So I look forward to some teasers along the way. But when that day comes, when there is the reveal, I don't think this is going to be like some of the other reveals where there's, the big drop off in the stock the next day, and then it takes a month for it to realize how big a deal it is. This is such a big deal. A factory that's going to produce 4 million of these cars in a $25,000 price point. No, I think this will be a game changer immediately.
Yeah. I don't think that Giga Nueva Leon is behind schedule. I think they're still in the 3 month time frame for them to announce that the groundbreaking will happen. Um, but that's fine. You're right. People need to hear that this factory is on schedule, moving fast. But clearly, this is a totally new animal, right? New segment. It's a compact car. This is the thing that's going to sell more than any other car manufacturing out there. So if they show what it is, they show that they can actually sell a $25,000, $30,000 car. Boom, we're off to the races. This car this the narrative change will be that Tesla's no longer just this very expensive premium brand car, segment. They're now selling cars for the average person who can buy the cars. And so they've got a segment in every place and they've become a full on competitor. Fantastic. Yeah, that orders taken will be crazy. I think the only thing that will, it'll be like bots number one, and then Gen 3 car, and then Cybertruck. That would be the way it is. And
Yeah.
just that alone, the orders taken will be crazy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so then the
And
last one
actually,
here, yeah.
go ahead. Okay.
Okay. So last one is the Dojo as a service. And in general, it's the AI theme. So right now, everybody's saying, right? Why isn't Tesla being considered by all these analysts? And Nvidia went crazy because they're considered to be the AI tool, kind of the thing that can help create AI companies. But yeah, Tesla is not being seen this. And so this pairs back with the first thing you said, which is public relations from Elon. If he keeps talking about Tesla being an AI company and whether or not Dojo as a service becomes a reality or not, he kind of hedged. He goes, if it becomes a service, it's going to be what is that, $10 billion business? What the
400,
number? $100 billion
hundreds of
business?
billions,
Yeah.
hundreds of billions. Yeah.
But then he said, but maybe he doesn't. He's hedging. Why did he do that? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I have this. I did a video on this the other day, and I have this wild and crazy idea. I can't prove it yet, and I'm trying to get. John has been traveling and stuff. John Gibbs. I'm trying to get John to do a show with me to talk about this. I have this wild and crazy idea that there is going to be a use case for small businesses, and the video I did was like showing it for a real estate agent. So a real estate agent has all this complex stuff they've got to do with all these databases in order to look at a homeowner, that's a prospect that's come to them and said, here's the kind of house I'm looking for. Well, generally speaking, they might ask them 5 questions and then they go off and start looking, but they could ask them 100 questions. And they could take the 100 questions and feed it into an AI system, and the 100 questions, and those questions would be ranked in terms of importance and whether they're, this is what I'd love to have, but it's not necessary. This is something I have to have, etc. And you put this into an AI system, and it goes out and looks at all of the listing services, the general listing service. It looks at Zillow, it looks at Redfin, it looks at all of them, and it finds every possibility within the framework that this person is looking for, and then it just starts making phone calls. it doesn't give a list to the realtor. It makes the phone calls to the person that is showing the house and to the prospect, and organizes a list of showings for a single day so that the real estate agent is not involved in that. So anyway, you can kind of get the flow of this.
Yeah, I feel
To
like
where
you might be confusing from my understanding. So the FSD is real world AI. It's going to do robotaxi.
right, right,
The chat GPT is large language models, and that's
right.
the things that can do everything you just said. Okay.
I don't know if it can do all those things
Yes, it can.
because
It's integrated to all these different services, including, let's say, Zillow and others. You can ask it questions. It can go grab that data. But what Dojo as a service is a supercomputer that they're opening up and letting other vendors, other AI companies to be able to now take advantage of that. And so it
mm-hmm.
becomes very similar to Amazon's AWS, where they're giving
Right,
you this ability to access servers that they already have. And
right,
so it's like it becomes like as if Tesla is Nvidia. Now Nvidia is chips. I'm not saying that. Also, obviously, Tesla has chips, their own semiconductor chips, but right now they're using the Nvidia supercomputers. Tesla
mm-hmm.
is,
Mm-hmm.
and but they're going to offer a competitor, Dojo, as a supercomputer as a service to others. So, anyways, I think regardless of what we just said, which is what he said at the beginning, right? He's going to make sure that Tesla is part of the equation, whether it's part of Truth
Mm-hmm.
AI or Twitter
Right, mm-hmm.
and Tesla. The three
Mm-hmm.
together, they're going to do AI and AGI. And he said that it's fast. They will get to be able to do a chat GPT before chat GPT can do real world AI. So they're going to be able to
Yeah,
do both. And so if the whole point is just get on this AI bandwagon, be seen, be understood by the investing community that we are in AI. That's what's needed. And if they and this is September, if in September they do announce some sort of Dojo service, then we're off to the races. That's just
yeah.
one big
What I'm trying
thing.
to do is visualize what the service is.
Yeah, right.
Is
This
the
the
service
customers.
something, is the customer only target, that has some massive kind of database that they need to evaluate? Or is there a use case
Mhm.
that's at a much smaller level where a small business owner with 50 or 100 employees has an application? Is it something that is for laboratories? Is it something, where are these use cases?
Yeah.
And if there's enough, I don't want to quite call it consumer because it wouldn't be Randy Kirk looking for, something in his backyard. Okay. But, if how many, what is the TAM? Where are the use cases? I think that would be interesting to know. And I'm thinking it might be a lot more use cases than we can even possibly imagine at this point.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's see. What we just did today is talked about these 11 different events that can happen over the next year, of which a Gen 3 would be the first quarter next year. If any of these things happen, or some of them, they continue to bolster the stock, changes the narrative, improves its momentum, and even some of them could actually make the stock take off. But that's good news. I mean, there's so many things that Tesla is heading in the right direction, some more good news. And of course, we are saying that this is barring macro. If macro has to kind of be safe for growth companies, all of this will happen, and we're on our way. But if not, things will just keep building, and then when the macro does turn, boom, right? It's like a slingshot. You're just gonna just keep building, and then finally it'll take off. So, thank you for going through all of this with me, Brandy. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So one really quick thought, just on the macro, is this is the first time though that I've changed what I'm saying about the macro,
Right.
which is with this much buoyancy under the stock, it's going to be beating the Nasdaq consistently, even if the stock market doesn't start taking off. So as opposed to being less than the Nasdaq or being even with the Nasdaq, I think it will now consistently
Mhm.
beat the Nasdaq until, as you point out, until the slingshot takes effect.
I love it. Well, let's hope that you're right. I can see why you would say that. Let's hopefully that's what happens. Okay, thank you so much, Randy. Appreciate
You
you.
bet.
And folks, follow him on his YouTube channel, Randy Kirk. He's on his Twitter, Randy W Kirk One. It's a great follow, great person with lots of energy and lots of very forward thinking. Follow him. Talk to you guys soon. Bye, everybody.